We refuse to move the way they want us to move. We refuse to condemn the people that they in our community that they label the villains that we label heroes and sheroes. Right? That's all of those different types of resistance. And it's very important because the Creator made us all differently, family, and gave us all gifts. And for our liberation movement to be successful, we have to appreciate, to identify the different gifts we have and be able to appreciate them. And in order to keep this Black liberation movement going, we must be able to stop the demoralizing of people. We have to be able to bring people into the movement, family. And one key way you bring people into the movement is to demonstrate that you see them, that you recognize them, that you see them as important to the movement. So this means we can't go around saying the only way you can be in our movement is if you read every book on Malcolm X. You're not going to have too much of a liberation movement if that's your criteria, because a whole lot of people are not doing that. Or if you don't know how to build a house from scratch, or you don't know anything about military or warfare. No, family, we got to bring people in. And we got people in every type of profession, industry, skill set, knowledge base you can think of. One thing we're doing, we're making the mistake of casting people out if they're not great public speakers, if they haven't written X amount of books, if they don't speak X amount of African languages or wear a certain type of African clothing, if they're not socialist enough for us, if they're not nationalist enough, if they're not Pan-Africanist enough, we cast them away, and that is a mistake. Big mistake. Our people come in all types of contexts and textures and shapes and colors and sizes and political ideologies, right? So one of the things I think is important to do is, first of all, we define resistance and Black resistance. Now, let's talk about different types of resistance. And without making this like an inexhaustible presentation, I want to use the context of the enslavement of our ancestors. Our ancestors enslaved a few centuries back never enjoyed their enslavement. They hated it. And particularly the first generation that was snatched out of the motherland and brought to another land to be enslaved by mostly British people. They hated it, being disconnected from their culture and their family. And in every historical era, Black people fought back, family. Sometimes we didn't have weapons of warfare to fight back, so we fought back by going to court in the Civil Rights Movement and by protest in all these different ways. If you look at what happened in these slave plantations, you'll get a good idea of what I'm talking about. Let's think about it. Many of our people who were enslaved actually decided their way of resisting their enslavement was to run away, to pack up and bounce, right? So we know about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. But think about it. That's an act of resistance because white slaveholders designated our people as property. If you were enslaved, that meant you were the quote-unquote property of some white person. That meant that if you ran away legally in their eyes, you were stealing their property. That's crazy. So that's a form of resistance. You're failing to comply with their definitions, their standards.